there were definitely a goat. There was definitely rabbits.
Hey there guys, what's going on and welcome back to our channel. If you have an extra property and you're thinking of renting the place, we say think again. While giving your place for rent must seem like a good opportunity to make money, but trust us, it isn't. You must be thinking why we're so much against renting. Well, we have many reasons for that, but not only reasons, we have so many incidents to justify our point. All the headache you will have as a landlord is just not worth it. So let's look into reasons why you should never rent. Number 4, tenants don't pay the rent. Never let appearances fool you. Just because a prospective tenant looks clean, sophisticated, and well-to-do doesn't mean that he or she will be a good tenant for you. A case in point, a landlord told a story about an outwardly prosperous man who applied to rent one of the landlord's apartments. He showed up with some nice clothes and a nice car and gave some sob story about how he needed a place to stay immediately as his wife had recently died, which prompted the sympathetic landlord to speed up the screening process and skip important requirements such as the background check. A few months later, the tenant stopped paying the rent and started living for free. Every time the landlord asked for the money, the tenant used a sob story which made the landlord let him live for free. In the end, the landlord discovered that this tenant has done this with all of his other landlords. Now this is something very disappointing and we don't understand why the tenants do these things. Well, there is one thing we know for sure. Never let these kinds of tenants get away with this. As a landlord, you have complete right to take legal actions for getting your money, or well, if the tenant is not paying, just evict them from your house and get another one if you're 100% sure in favor of renting your place. Just this time make sure to have all the background checks. If you listen to us, we say do not rent. Number 3, tenants thrash the house. Giving your place for rent is not as easy as it sounds. You cannot just buy a place and give it out for rent. You have to invest your money and take care of a lot of things. When you allow people to spend a lot of time on your property, you have to take into consideration the safety of it. Even though they've signed a contract and they pay you the rent to live there, it's still your responsibility to eliminate all hazards. Otherwise, you could be facing an expensive, stressful lawsuit. Liabilities on a rental property include things like tree houses, play structures, creeks in the backyard, climbing trees, lifting concrete sidewalks, broken stair rails, and more. If your property is in general disrepair or there are small nuances you never got around to fixing, a good lawyer can make a case for why you have to pay the medical bills when a tenant gets hurt. Now imagine putting all of your money to take care of this, and when a tenant leaves, your place is turned into nothing but a pile of trash. This is the worst thing tenants can do. There are so many cases of landlords complaining about tenants thrashing the place. There was this one guy who uploaded a video of his house after a tenant just moved out. The house looked like animals have been living there. Nope, we think an animal's place is cleaner than that house. We don't think the rent you get is worth all the trouble you have to go through. If you want money, we say sell the place, but never rent.
So my tenants have left the property. Yeah.
Number 2, tenants bring animals. Imagine a tenant turning your house into a farm. Just imagine what a mess they would create in your house. Isn't that your worst nightmare? Many landlords do not allow pets on rental properties because of the assumption that having animals would mean physical damages to the property. But at the end of the day, it's still the owner's responsibility to train the animal and take proper precautions to mitigate the consequences of their pet's behavior. It's only when owners fail to take responsibility for their pets that these problems occur. The problem is never the animal, it's the owner. This was the worst nightmare of a landlord which came true. A guy named Andrew rented a place to a few tenants, and during their stay, They brought all kinds of animals to the place, including goats, rabbits, and chickens. Now, these aren't the kind of animals that people generally keep as pets. This is what made Andrew suspicious. However, Andrew did not discover the cause of these animals, but when he evicted these tenants, his house was miserable. The house was destroyed. It was full of different animal waste. There were several damages to the walls and appliances. There were piles of garbage everywhere. It seems like these people never cleaned the house. Andrew was concerned about his house, but what shocked him the most was how all of these people were living there, especially in all that waste. Either they were extremely dirty people or they didn't have any sense of smell. Andrew had to invest a lot of his money to clean his house, which was literally double what he earned from the rent. This is why we say the rent is not as profitable as you think it is, so never rent your place.
There were definitely a goat. There was definitely rabbits.
Number 1, they can become violent. Terrible tenants can make your job as a landlord tough. Some of them pay rent late every month, while others are careless and damage your property. Most property owners face the hassle of dealing with difficult tenants at some point, and it isn't easy. Generally speaking, in tenancy situations, the landlord holds the power. They own the property, set the rules, and collect the money. Well, this collecting the money part is where tenants become problematic, and sometimes even they use violence. There was this one man who rented his apartment to a guy, and when he went to the place to ask for the rent, the tenant practically shoved him off the stairs. The landlord ended up with a broken arm. Now, this is something you should never tolerate as a landlord. You can always take legal action against them and evict them right away. And if they threaten you, you can always get a lawyer for yourself. There is no need for you to be afraid of such a person. After all, you are the owner of your place. However, we think that sometimes the landlords are responsible for the troubles they go through with because they don't screen their tenants properly. The bottom line is, to ensure that you don't end up with a tenant horror story, always take the necessary steps to find out everything you can about your prospective tenants. Being a landlord is definitely not for the faint of heart. Still, almost all of the tenant horror stories could have been avoided with a proper tenant screening process and by conducting complete and accurate background checks.
Curiously, then my dad flew from the front door to the concrete of the sidewalk.
If you're still in the mood to rent, do let us know your reasons down in the comments section below. And before we head out of here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And with that, I'll be catching you guys later in the next video. Bye now!